Welcome to Below the Line, where we talk about working in Hollywood from the crew perspective. My name is Skid. I'm a former assistant director and your host.
Quiet on the set.
Today, we're talking about Daredevil Born Again, the 9-episode series that aired earlier this year on Disney+. This was the first of at least 2 seasons that Disney is planning to produce, following 3 seasons of the show that aired on Netflix between 2015 and 2018. My guest today is Director of Photography, Pedro Gomez Millan. Pedro, welcome to Below the Line.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here.
Glad you're here as well. Let me introduce my co-host today. Returning to the show is Gianni Damaia. Gianni, nice to see you again.
Always happy to be back for any and all nerd episode things involving Below the Line. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. A warning for listeners, let me throw it out. Today's conversation will contain spoilers, so please catch up, come back and listen to us. Pedro, we were both super excited when we had the opportunity to talk to you, fans of the original show, fans of Daredevil in general, if I'm speaking for myself. However, I do want to say that it's no secret that Marvel, under the Disney umbrella, decided to rethink the direction of this series after production was already underway. That was in the news. We're going to talk more about that. But first, I'm hoping you can set the stage for us. What brought you on board in the beginning, and what was the original production plan?
Yes, for sure. I read the script of the pilot that they sent me, and I was totally excited. I obviously knew about the show before. I'm not a hardcore comic fan. Like, I didn't grow up reading comics, although Calvin and Hobbes, if that counts, was like my favorite.
I'm also a fan of Calvin and Hobbes. When that movie comes out, I hope you're on it as well. And they do a Calvin and Hobbes live action.
I'm gonna be like first in line. Like, please let me do that one. So no, I mean, I read the script, and beyond, like, I love superheroes, and beyond the superhero part, which as a cinematographer, I'm always, excited to tackle on visually those stories. The script was super interesting, just in terms of like plot and characters. I'm drawn to, like, deep layered characters with interesting conflicts and storyline. And it seemed like, just if you were reading that script and put the superhero aside, it would be like, wow, this is a movie I could totally watch, So I got that script, and I was like, yes, I would really want to do that. And well, you were asking about the original plan, and when I interviewed and I got the show, the opportunity to shoot it, the plan was to do those 2 seasons that you mentioned earlier back to back. But then, we all know what happened. So the team decided to, like, just focus on finishing that one season and do the season later on, the second one.
And Pedro, so what episodes were you originally slated to be the cinematographer for?
With those 2 seasons back to back?
Right.
I mean, so we were 2 DPs on the show, so we were supposed to basically be alternating episodes, and we would be shooting kind of like half and half of the show.
Got it.
But I ended up, like, doing basically 4 and 5 and a bunch of additional photography all around the show.
Now, Pedro, I'm curious, just because a lot of, I think, what Daredevil Born Again as a show is kind of identifying in the character is it's really trying to kind of take it to more of focusing on Matt in equal parts as a superhero, but also as a lawyer, because he does a heroic job as his just general profession. And I'm curious, just genuinely, as someone who's just combing through your IMDb, your work on the Lincoln Lawyer, did it have any association with them being like, oh, he's worked with lawyer photography before?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I actually, that didn't come up at all, but maybe that's a question for them. But I feel like, how the industry works sometimes is like, you do something and then you've proven yourself, right? So people are like, oh, he knows how to do courtroom drama, he knows how to do comedy, and those things kind of help to get, to the next thing if they can see that you can do it. A lot of the times also, like, you can basically get boxed into something that you're like trying to get out. But at this time, maybe yes, maybe they saw that and they were like, he can probably do that. So I want to think that that helped my CV and that helped me put myself in Daredevil.
Yeah. Was there a particular sort of style that you were trying to pitch in terms of the visual aesthetic of the show when your initial interview, when you were trying to pitch yourself for it?
Yeah, totally. Like I did a very thorough visual treatment that I presented to the showrunners, and one of my ideas was like, and I feel like this was something that everybody was thinking, and I want to say like even like with the season that just came out, just hopefully feels like organic. Like I was leaning a little bit more into like a naturalistic light without losing that street crime New York drama. The previous Netflix shows were like very dark in terms of photography, like very deep, like New York, very in the shadows. And I love that. I think like it sets the mood and the tone, but we wanted to kind of like maybe get a little bit crack of sunlight, get a little bit crack of harder light in the corners in New York, like shine a light in the citizens of New York City, like have New York be a little bit more make it feel a little bit more organic if that's or naturalistic, but without losing that mood. They agree. That's something that they were excited about. And at the same time, we wanted to make it feel a little bit more like I don't know if analog is the word, but like we incorporate a lot of like zooms and with this Daredevil high sensitivity. So something that we could do in camera, or at least that makes it feel a little bit more in camera work rather than create a bunch of VFX around it. So yeah, I did like a really extensive treatment and presented to them.
Very cool. And then I'm curious, just because you had touched on something about kind of New York City as a character, there's a lot of moments within the show that sort of take a break from the general action and distance itself and focus on just the groundspeople around New York City. They change the aspect ratio and it has a very different color, very different vibe in those sort of organic street level interviews. Was that something that was a part of your sort of treatment, or was that something that the other cinematographer gave that then you had to adopt or adapt to, or was that always the plan? Was that in the script? Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a very interesting side of the story. I mean, it was something that came up while we were shooting this after the strike, if I remember correctly. Someone found, and I can't remember the name of the documentary filmmakers, but like someone new on the team, they found this documentary filmmaker and they love, like the way they were shooting their movies. And they're like, what if we incorporate that into the story and interview New Yorkers as part of like, a storyline, or like Fisk, like as a major now, and how that story pushes forward. And then someone else, like it's great like working on Daredevil too, because like as all these great creative projects, like someone comes up with an idea and someone else comes up with a different idea and then start bouncing it off. And I remember someone else saying like, what if this becomes kind of like the BB report? And it totally makes sense. I mean, she's a reporter, and then you tie it into part of the storyline. So it became like this kind of thing, like evolve. So what happened is, I think they got these filmmakers to do that part, and they shot it. I think at the end of principal photography. But yeah, I wasn't. It was not like my idea, creative deck.
No, but that's amazing that it still has like that collaborative effort. It's like making an indie film in the same way that you're just bouncing off. Anybody has a good idea that it just kind of gets contributed to and stacked on. That's super cool that they were able to incorporate something like that in a TV show as big and publicized as this one. So that's very interesting.
It was great. I mean, those meetings, like Fighting Sick, for example, like all these pre-visualizations. I remember sitting together in the room with the EPs, showrunners, directors, building upon like how we can make it better and how is this working. And I appreciate that. Like it takes a village to do these shows. So I think coming in and throwing ideas as far as like maybe they're off or maybe they're not so off, because somebody can like bounce off of that, and then it becomes a thing. So I really love that part.
Pedro, you mentioned the strikes. And so that's an opportunity for me to bring us back to the timeline and talk about the development of this show. You're referencing the writer strikes, which happened in the middle of when you guys were filming. Tell us more about what went down and how the redirection came about.
Yes, we were in the middle of the show. We completed 6 episodes, and I feel like Dario, the showrunner, have talked about this before. They had a very unique opportunity to take the time and see what we've shot so far, which doesn't happen very often. You know, you don't
Right.
have like a 8 month strike to like sit down on the footage and like edit it. So I feel like in a way that was a blessing in the sky. Like they were able to do that. So they look at the footage and they decided that, you know, they want to go more like the street crime drama tone that was in the previous show of Daredevil. So they needed to do a bunch of rewrites as well to kind of like also push the storyline in a different direction. So after the strike, we took a little bit to wait for the writers to like do all that work. So we came back as I mentioned before. We came back with a new plan of like finishing that season, and then there was like a bunch of adding scenes and reshoots that we needed to do in order to like, you know, get that creative in place.
Did the visual language of the show have to change as well to keep up with the script rights?
Yeah, that's actually a good question because they brought Aaron and Justin to reshoot the pilot. So the, you know, when you shoot a pilot, you're kind of like basically setting the tone and the visual language of a show. So if we're reshooting a pilot, then we also have an opportunity to come up with like a new visual language or like a different language that actually adapts to the creative, what we want to do. So in that sense, they're also the team came back to us and they were like, "Yeah, we like this what we've shot so far, like you know, naturalistic, sensitive camera of Matt. You know how we were shooting Matt with like sometimes low angles, and especially in those hypersensitivity moments when he's listening, like." Sometimes the camera can like found a flare on a street light that can like worked out for the character, or the greedy fight. There's that fight on episode 2 when the cops come in the apartment and Matt first start fighting them. So they love that, like they love that greedy look. So we were like, okay, let's just go in there and try to change the style a little bit. And there were also Aaron and Justin also came, and really they are very visual directors, like they have a very clear idea of what they like and their taste. So they also incorporated a lot of like, the zooms, like they brought the zoom part of the visual language into the story. So there you see these also big zooms. We call it the big doom zooms, when Daredevil is like listening, or Matt, because there's like different moments for Matt, and you'll see on the show like there's different times where like there's sometimes a flashback, sometimes a memory, he's remembering something, so sometimes he's actually listening to a conversation that's happening in the room or somewhere like 100 feet away. So there's all these different moments of Matt that they all don't have to look the same. And I feel like that variety also adds some freshness to the show. So Aaron and Justin brought in the zooms, and that was like a really cool visual way to represent Daredevil, I think. So we kind of like adopted that style throughout the show.
It strikes me that in a lot of the episodes where I can see the DNA of the original show, Disney in the scripting was making an effort to tie it in to other Disney shows, Hawkeye and Echo, and just, some of the, where there are other connections. And then when we talk about the reshoots, that's where we start pulling forward more of the DNA of the Netflix version. I'm curious if that was also an issue on the visual side. In other words, were you asked to reference some of these other Disney shows when you were figuring out how Daredevil was going to look?
Not really. I mean, no, not at all. We were doing our own thing, and we were like really full on Daredevil and thinking about Daredevil. And then all of a sudden you get a script, like episode 5, the bank episode, and then you see that they're referencing Kamala, and Kamala's dad, Yusuf, is part of the whole episode. He's like the manager of the bank. In those sense, I feel like there's a lot of reference like that, but it's on the page. And but visually, like we are in our own Daredevil Born Again world.
Pedro, you mentioned episode 5, as we noted earlier. That was one of the ones where you were doing the lens work on. Couldn't have segued it better myself. Let's go deeper into this specific episode to remind folks this is the one that takes place in the bank. The entire episode, maybe except for a scene or two, is set in all around the bank. It's kind of its own standalone story. And so I'm curious about your approach to this episode specifically, and then we'll go into some more details from there.
Episode 5 was super fun. It was great to get to shoot that episode. I mean, I really loved it. It was really challenging, but it was a blast. Like everything happens around the bank. And when we're location scouting in New York, there were just that many banks that you can we need to close down the streets, have scope, be able to basically take over. I think it was like a week or two or week and a half. And then, so we had a few banks, and then we ended up choosing one in Wall Street, which happened to be the same bank that Spike Lee shot Inside Man, coincidentally. It was not like, but, and also before that, I mean, on the script, you have a bank heist and you have all these other elements that reference Inside Man, like, the masks, the hostages, police negotiation or whatever. But and then we're like, okay, we're also in the same location. And if you've seen it or not, like there's also a mural, the same mural in the lobby of the bank that Spike shot. So we're like, okay. It became like an homage to the movie, and we didn't want to reference beyond that because all the references are so on the page plus the location. So I was like also visually, and it's the middle of the show, so we're already set the visual style. So I just, we're going with it. But yeah, it was great. So we had the mural, and also like, who owns the right of the mural? Can we shoot the mural? I think at some point we were like, we cannot shoot the mural. We have to, limit the shots. And I'm like, how can we not shoot the mural? It's massive. It's a lobby. It's like we have action scenes. And luckily the team was like super supported, and they were like, don't worry about it. We got it. We got the rights. We were able to do it. And we also had, it was a very challenging location technically. The bank sits in the middle of Wall Street. So we were not able to close down the streets for, and it has like big windows, like, I don't know, like 15, 20 feet tall to like 10 feet wide on both sides. And then the streets are super narrow. There's like buildings up against it. So when you're like, it's a super sunny, hot day outside New York, you're sitting in the middle of the lobby, and it's like dark. Like there's no light coming in at all. So we had to like take over the blocks, throw some light in, but we couldn't close on the street. Like there's all these like, filmmaking nightmares that I don't know if the audience is interested in hearing about it, but
oh, I'm interested in hearing about it, and they're just gonna have to come along. No, keep going, Pedro.
But anyway, we managed to do it. I was really proud the first day, like start turning lights on, and I'm like, oh, this worked. It's looking like something. So anyway, yeah, it was really fun, and we shoot most of the scenes in the bank and around the bank. There's also a schedule. You'll probably enjoy this story too. Like, schedules are like, I don't know how ADs do it. Like, it's just like a nightmare. It's like a puzzle that I'm like, at the end of the day, like, okay, I did my shot list, I'm out. And they're still like struggling with the schedule. I'm like, so everything fell into place. And there was just one scene that needed to fall somewhere. And it was like the fight between Matt and Devin, the lead robber in the alleyway. So it had to fall in a day because of the workload, but we couldn't company move because we're at the bank, so we had to find it somewhere there. And Wall Street is like a pain to shoot. And we're like, what are we going to do? Like, So one day we're on the location, and I remember being in the van and kind of like seeing like an alleyway.
It's like Gold Street, right? That guy, because I swear I can recognize where it was. I used to live down in the financial district, and it looked like it was like either Gold Street or John Street. It was like at that like intersection there. I remember that kind of alleyway look. Is that where you guys shot it?
I think it's like around Van Damme,
Mm.
and there's like some bagels that are like in the morning, like Leo's bagels. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Leo's Bagel. I used to live
Leo's bagels.
at 10 Hanover Square, which is right next to Leo's Bagels.
Every morning there was like a crazy line, and I was like, I gotta try those bagels. I mean, like people line up for that. Leo's. I think I bought my team some bagels one day, and they were like delicious. So yeah, the alleyway is like it's like around the corner of Leo's Bagels, I think.
Got it. Yeah.
This was days before I was on the way on location. I saw an alleyway, and I was like, oh, that's a cool alleyway. And then I wasn't thinking about the fight. I wasn't thinking about anything. And then this came up, and I was like, I remember seeing an alleyway that could be interesting, but I don't know where it is. Because you're like talking with the director, and then also, your mind is just like, and I was so disoriented. I didn't know where we were. So we're like, well, we have to figure out where this alleyway. So the team, we're all walking around. It's like, maybe it's this way, maybe it's that way. It was just like so funny. And then we finally found it, and it worked out perfectly, and it was great.
So Disney's going to bill you as a location scout as well as a DP is what we're getting from this.
No, I think what's cool about being a filmmaker too is like you gotta be open to the process of scouting. It's not like just relying on the locations department to find you what you want. It's like also a team effort, and if you don't communicate with them, it's also like harder for them to do it. So I feel like I'm always trying to be open, and there's so many curveballs like this in every production that you also need to know the story and the characters and see if this location kind of like fits in within the story. So I love also shooting in New York City. Like the city has so many things to offer, but you gotta like be open.
Always be on the lookout. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just to say it just because it's just so funny that it was actually shot at the same bank as Inside Man. But when Skate and I were talking about the episode, I am 99% certain that I was calling it just between the two of us the Inside Man episode. So that is just so funny to
No.
hear. Can we talk a little bit about the stairwell fight scene? Because I just thought it was so fun and inventive. And there's that brilliant moment where you show that shotgun just teetering on the edge as Matt is calculating it, pushes back, and then catches it just in time while he's also got this guy in like the craziest headlock ever. I'm curious though, when you're doing these, sort of elaborate fight scenes, and that one's kind of tamed down compared to some of the other bigger fight scenes in the show. Like it's a pretty brief one, even though it's like a very, very inventive one, I think, in terms of a cinematographic landscape. But I'm curious, does the stunt team give you a previs for how they want it to kind of look and then you go from there? Or are they just showing you the choreography and then you're deciding where to put the camera?
No, the stunt team, they work almost like a little bit as a second unit when they're like planning the fight. Like they talk to the director. We have like a creative meeting, and they can like know the key moments of the story. And what I love about Daredevil and good action scenes, it's not like it's just action because of action. Like the action scenes need to push the story forward as well. Like there's some elements in the story that need to be considered, right? So it's almost like a scene, like between, I don't know, like do you learn anything from the characters? Anything new? Do they reveal anything? Do you see another side of the character that you didn't see before? Like that's the type of action that I like. And I feel like a lot of that was happening in this show. So what they do is like they create visualization and they share it with us, with me and the director and obviously the showrunners. And we give our input. And then I was like, wait, what if like, we do a shot from the top? Or what if like the camera moves this way? Or what if there's a reflection here? And then, so, we starting creative dialogue with them. And then they go back, they incorporate those ideas, and then they send it back to us because we're shooting at this point, like, or we're prepping, or and they come to set, they show it to us. We during lunch we look at it, we give our notes back, and then until we kind of like finalize it. And then at that point, because this is a TV schedule, it's not like, even though it's like it's a Marvel show, we gotta move fast, pretty fast. And that scene especially, we were so it was intense. It was intense to shoot it. So we gotta get it right. And there's so many elements that you have to like consider. And it's also a real staircase. It's on location. It's not on a stage. So we have to like, we cannot move walls. We cannot do a lot of things that you could do on the stage. So yeah, once you have everything planned out, then it's a matter of like doing your best and getting that shot and during the allotted time.
Pedro, I want to turn our attention to episode 4. On 5, you talked about the bank and the challenges and the limitations of shooting in that space. What was different about episode 4? Again, that's more of a traditional sort of script structure and various locations, but in your approach, what caught your attention or what was different about that?
Yeah, episode 4, it's also its own animal. I really like episode 4. I mean, you get to see Matt working the wheels of justice with Leroy, right? I love the way these two actors were attacking the scene in the cell. Like Matt is seeing in front of his eyes the injustice of the system and shooting it with close-ups to make it feel intimate and personal. It was one of the, me and Jeffrey wanted to really attack that. So I think that that side of Matt, it's also new at this point in the show. Like we're seeing, his daily work at the same time as we do Fisk in the Red Hook and going to the Latvian consulate and listening to these kids singing to him, and he's like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Like, so we're seeing both characters doing their own thing in a way, and at the end it kind of like builds up to the end of the episode where like, and this is the camera and the cinematography and the editing, it's building towards that moment where you've seen two characters that are very different, very apart from each other, but at the end we find the common ground and we find the common points that make them also so similar. Like these are two characters that are struggling and they have inner conflicts and they're struggling to change. And I found that episode so touching and compelling after watching it. Like one thing is to be shooting it and imagining it, how is it going to come through, but once you see it all together, I think it's very it brings them so close. And I feel also the show overall is like this tension between Fisk and Matt. So that episode kind of like encapsulates the whole concept between those two characters, and I love it.
Pedro, your point, there's the conflict between Fisk and Matt, and also they're both having the same internal conflict where they're not really crazy about their day jobs. And that last scene you're talking about, yeah, with Matt is training with his billy clubs, and Fisk goes down into the basement where he's holding his wife's ex-lover in a cell. And so again, you're getting these parallels that I think are really well illustrated in this episode, to your point.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And like we try to help and push those parallels and visualize them on the screen with like camera angles and color and light. You see Matt not being able to sleep on an overhead shot with a red pulsing light, and he's like that visualization of his like inner conflict, like I gotta go up. I gotta go up to rooftop and do my Daredevil thing. Like he just can't help it. And the same thing with Fisk is like coming down to the basement, which is like also a new space in the show. Like we reveal something new, something that he's a mayor now and he's on in the spotlight. Something that it's new to him because he's also he's part of the mafia. He's a mobster, and he's lived in previous seasons underground on the shadow. But this time, like, and that also it's a compliment with episode 6, with the end of episode 6, with both fights, where like I shot both fights to the ending, where after the the fight with Adam, he sits down inside the cell, and there's like that hard light, kind of like present on Fisk's fight. And to me, it was like that hard light cannot escape Fisk, even in the most deepest, lowest parts of his life, and that hard light kind of finds a way to like touch him, and that hard light is very present throughout the show, like in the mayor's office, in his office during the day. And so that was also something we decided to do with Fisk specifically, kind of like a little bit on the show, but yeah, like a cool harder light on Fisk, just to make him feel ominous and intimidating and powerful sometimes, but also like um, also sometimes like try to humanize him in a way so we can empathize with him. Like after the fight, he's there, he's powerful, he just almost kills someone, but in through my eyes, I was like, he's in so much pain in a way too.
I want to continue with these parallels you drew out, Pedro, between the ending of episode 4 and the fight scenes in episode 6. Because episode 6, as we established earlier, was not one of your planned episodes as cinematographer, but these fight scenes, I'm assuming, were added as part of the redirection. Yeah, I want you to dive deeper into that and the work you did.
Yes, so I did work on episode 6, and there's so many, like sometimes I don't even remember exactly what scenes, because there's all over, like
Yeah.
including episode 2, 3, 6, and 7. So I did those fights, which, like on episode 6 at the end, Daredevil fighting Muse, where the Ayala girl is laying down, and also Adam fighting Fisk. We shot the White Tiger, I mean, the Muse and Daredevil fight. So this was like a reshoot. They wanted to incorporate the Ayala girl in the scene. That was not the plan. But, like the Fisk, again, these are very especially Fisk fight is a little bit like run dirty, like, and that was the plan. It's like we're just gonna go with it, and I mean it's obviously choreographed, and there's some previs and plan out, but it's not like it's raw. He's like almost tried to cut this guy out, but he contains himself. So there's like happy accidents in that scene. I remember we block it, we were ready to shoot, and then when on our first take, Fisk raises Adam up, and the overhead that's above the table starts like moving around the place, and there was something that we were not planning to do. Like we never saw it on the blocking, or and I'm like, wait a second, like how is this gonna cut with the rest of the scene? But at the same time, I liked it, and I looked at David Boyd, the director, and we're like, oh, okay, maybe we live with it. Maybe this is something that adds to the scene and adds to the chaos and to the violence, and so we decided to leave it on. We didn't want to have also the actors do it again. It was just great. It was like on the monitor you're watching, like this is amazing. Like why are we stopping something amazing that wasn't planned? Like it's just adding up to the scene. So it's one of those happy accidents that after that take we make sure like and David Boy was like tapping that light and kind of like figuring out the timing. Is it too is moving too much? Is moving too little? So it was fun. It was fun shooting those scenes.
Yeah, it's amazing looking at it from a continuity standpoint, and I really can't tell, that, but knowing that in between takes, someone is trying to calculate out, like, okay, the swing would probably reach right about now, go, yeah, that's just
Yeah,
that's organic filmmaking, baby,
I know.
and I love what you have to say too about how it does reflect the character as well. It feels like a raw, violent, very organic, very, from a primal place, which feels like, of course, it's going to get messy. Of course, it's going to start affecting the environment in ways that we probably wouldn't have anticipated otherwise.
Yeah, I remember telling David Boy like, no, 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 like this part of the scene, like it's already happened. So maybe that it's swinging a little too much. So like, we were doing like right before camera was about to roll. Like so we're like in the middle of the things, and me and David were like, no, like oh, pretty about the light. But yeah, it was fun, as you're saying, like, those things that come up, and being alert, and also have fun and make sure that those happy accidents do help the scene. Otherwise, you kind of like also have to pivot into another direction.
Just touching on the other fight scene as well, because as we had said, they're cutting back and forth in this one. Um, in the first episode of the show, which I know you didn't shoot on, but there's obviously that pivotal fight scene right at the beginning where I think Disney, Marvel made a really bold choice in killing off Foggy, but something that keeps happening throughout that is as that shot, that trick oneer is constantly ongoing, Daredevil is hearing the dying heartbeat of his best friend. Were you aware that, as you're shooting this fight scene between him and Muse, that's going to be something that's lingering in the audience's mind as well as the character's mind, as he's also listening to the potentially dying heartbeat of this girl that's left on the table by Muse? Was that something that was like a conscious choice, that it's like, we want to keep that as the forefront thing, pushing the stakes and elevating the scene?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was part of the script. That was part of the idea of, incorporating the Ayala girl into this fight. Before that, it was just someone that Muse got off the street and it was laying down, and I don't think the heartbeat was part of it. But like the fact that they tie in one of the characters, especially this girl, is like, is the most innocent, trying to find justice for the death of his uncle. Is like, you're already cheering for her, right? So the fact that she's laying down on the table, and like only thing Daredevil cares about finding justice and saving people's life, and actually not killing even his most um, crazy enemies and adversaries. So I feel like that elevated the stakes of the scene and show us also, a side of Daredevil, or like, keep the theme of the story in the camera, in the show. So yes, when we're framing up, like Daredevil, and he's like listening the Ayala girl's heartbeat, and he's like hanging in the background, like,
Yeah.
you think like he's gonna kill him, right? Or you think like he's just gonna like finish this. But the Ayala girl, the heartbeat, wins over that. So I think um that was great. Like, I feel like the rewrites coming back after the strike made the show so much stronger, and so much like, in a direction where hopefully the fans are excited, and it's hard to please everybody, but from my point of view, I feel like it was exciting, to come back and start doing like this work that I was like, whoa, this is actually like really great work.
Pedro, anything you can tease us about season two?
I don't think so.
Pedro, it's just us. We're having such a good time. Come on, tell us something.
No, and I would love to know. I would love to know too. I'm a local in Los Angeles, so unfortunately, I'm there. They told me that they were looking for local in New York this time, so I'm not actually part of the show. So I have the same question that you do.
All right, Pedro, we're in the same boat with us. We'll all watch it together when it rolls around. On that note, we're going to call it a wrap. It was a lot of fun having you here today. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you guys. It was really great. I had a blast too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, allowing us to just gush over cool work with cool characters, man. It's an absolute honor and a privilege, and hopefully see you again on the podcast.
Perfect.
Listeners, I always appreciate your feedback. You'll find my contact info at our website, belowtheline1word.biz. That's B-I-Z. You'll also find past episodes and links to all of our social media, so check it out. Pedro, not Daredevil, but where else are we going to see your work?
Yes, I did a show that is called, I think they're still trying to find a title, but it was Pink Marine at some point, or maybe The Core. Yeah, one of those two. Maybe there's a third one, I don't know. but it's a Netflix show. It's really great. It's an adaptation of a book about a young man joining Marine boot camp in the 90s under the don't ask, don't tell policy, and he's a gay man and trying to find his identity through that experience. So it's really good.
And who's the star of it? Is it someone we know that we can watch for that, even if they switch the title?
Yeah, Vera Farmiga is on the show, and Miles Hazer is the lead, and Andy Parker is the showrunner.
We will watch for that.
On Netflix.
Closing credits, thanks to Curtis Five for our music, John Wan for our logo, and to all of our listeners, I appreciate you. The Below the Line logo is available on t-shirts, mugs, and stickers at redbubble.com. I'm still running the promotion that if you send me a picture of yourself in a Below the Line t-shirt, I'll thank you by name on the show. Other ways you can help. First, give us a positive rating wherever you get your podcast. Second, share a positive review with your friends, because that's how we find new listeners. All of that aside, whatever your engagement, the fact that you're still listening means a lot to me. Thanks again from Below the Line.
No, do I get to say something? No. Yeah,
you can say whatever you like. That's the and if it doesn't come out great like this right now, I'm not going to say this in the final episode. Don't worry. So, Gianni only prompted you because I can see smiling that you're having a good time, but the listeners don't see that. So that was,
I try not to laugh or make too many affirming noises, because every time I'm on a podcast, I have the tendency to just be like, mm-hmm. And people told me I do that too much.
Those are a pain in the ass, I'll admit. But all right.
I have my hands over my mouth, so I don't say that. I'm the same. I'm like, but I'm trying to avoid it.